think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
It is a very, very sad day today. Most of you who are on the stream right now, you certainly have heard the news. Many of you out there may not have heard the news, but I guess mid-evening last night, the news broke of the passing of former Senator Linda Collins, and people are really mourning and in shock all across the state. There are people who called her a friend, and it is a very sad, sad day for all of you out there, for the entire state, for those of you who knew Linda personally. The condolences, the kind words that are flooding social media are remembering Linda as someone who loved people well. And I do have a statement here from Brenda Vassar Taylor and Joe Maynard, who are the Conduit co-founders. It is with a heavy and grieving heart we express our sympathy to the family and to the state of Arkansas for the loss of their loved one and our friend, Senator Linda Collins. It is our prayer that we may honor her by continuing her work to uphold and fight for our nation's founding principles of liberty and freedom for all Arkansans. The news, let me also read this. Sorry, I kind of have been, just so you know, I've internalized pretty much all of this since about, I guess 7:15 last night when I found out. So I have been in shock on the phone, like many of you have, because Linda was just so precious to all of us. I did find comfort in this verse this morning that popped up on my phone as soon as I got up to come to work to do the show. It is from Hebrews chapter 4. It is verse 14. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then, with confidence, draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So for Linda, this the good news is that death was not the end for her. And on Twitter, what I posted was last night was that, you know, the thing is, She cared about everyone. She cared about everyone that she met. She treated them with respect, with dignity. Her life was marked by the love of Christ, and she is with him now. Any of you out there, you can feel free to comment on this. You can do so on the website, facebook.com/Conduit News. You could call us 870-275-9799. You could call or text. We do have guests scheduled for the program today, but it's just going to be extremely difficult to get through. There are statements. Senator Alan Clark, he said this about 8 hours ago on Facebook. I am sure I will have more to say in the future, but for now I have simply lost one of my best friends, and a person, whether you loved her or hated her, was fearless and incorruptible. Senator Brian King. Tonight I was heartbroken to learn about the death of my friend and former colleague, Linda Collins. Linda was a rare public servant that stayed true to her word in a political world that did everything it could to defeat her. Her courage to stand up for what was right in the face of evil made her such an inspiration to myself and all others that cared about what is right and just. Words can't express the emotions that overwhelm me on how anyone could do such evil to someone with such a pure and good heart. My only comfort is knowing our Lord has Linda in his arms. I pray for all her family during this terrible, unthinkable tragedy. We haven't actually gotten to the news of what happened. We don't know a lot. Senator Linda Collins Smith was found dead of a gunshot wound, according to reports. The reports are that it is not suicide, that it wouldn't be possible for it to be suicide. This story was first brought to my attention by NEA Report. That's Northeast Arkansas, NEAreport.com. The headline, former state senator found dead from gunshot wounds. There are a few updates here that are beneficial, that give us a little bit of insight into what happened, because this is being investigated, according to reports, as a murder. We hope, and first of all, we want to pray for the investigators. We want to hope that whoever did this is brought to justice swiftly. Former Arkansas Senator Linda Collins was found dead at her home this evening in Randolph County. Sources say it was not of natural causes. There was a very large police presence last night. There are updates that were coming in on NEA Report at 7:25. They learned information from a neighbor who said Collins was killed by gunshot. At 7:30, a law enforcement source told NEA Report it appeared that it was not possible to be suicide. Another update at 7:50 last night. We are told neighbors have been locking their doors and staying inside. Now, this apparently was, that might have happened, but the sad thing is, according to other reports, it appears that that the gunshot was actually heard by a neighbor a couple of days ago, and so that she had been, the assumption is that she had been deceased for a while, or for a couple of days. Bill Sadler with the Arkansas State Police said special agents of the Arkansas State Police are in Randolph County at the scene of a residence where human remains have been discovered. At this hour, I have no direct or indirect information that might confirm the death of an individual you've identified, but it is former Senator Linda Collins. Now, originally, I heard reports that the FBI was involved. I haven't heard that yet, but that originally the story was that the FBI was on their way. The FBI was involved here in some capacity, which led for me to ask questions to some others, and I'm still working on some of that. This seems to confirm the state, but now the report is the state police are handling the investigation. Arkansas Times reports, as well as KATV reports, that Ken Yang, who once campaigned for Linda Collins Smith, and his name was on the last press release she ever put out, which is why the press was referring to Ken as the press secretary. Ken's a friend. I talked to Ken last night. Told KATV neighbors had heard gunshots at least the day before Collins Smith was found. Her body was wrapped in a blanket, tarp, or something else, and I'm told it was also I'm told that she was also found outside, but I haven't confirmed that. That's just one report that I've heard. State police told the Arkansas Times the body was decomposed to the extent that it had not been able to be identified. One source told NEA report that she had been outside for several days. Another update, the last one, 11 p.m. Forensic experts plan to travel this evening from Little Rock to investigate the crime scene. Collins was incredibly active on social media, but her activity ended on May 28th. That's almost 7 days ago. The last time she shared a post on Facebook commenting on a video, a Mountain View meeting place where there was a music duet, and she said a beautiful voice, talking about the people in the video. So we will continue to update you when we have more information. It is obviously a very, very sad day, because Linda was fearless, and she always told you where she stood. Always. As far as political debates, there were very, very few things that Senator Linda Collins and I disagreed with. We pretty much agreed with everything. We disagreed on the last election cycle. We disagreed with the term limits amendment that was placed on the ballot, and it was always good to talk to her and to know that we could disagree on something, and we could state our points, and we still had plenty of respect for one another. What's interesting is I've heard this from a lot of people, especially younger individuals who had families. She would always ask about your wife or your child. She wanted to know. With me personally, I guess my daughter's going to be 2 in July, and so Linda would every time she saw me, she wanted to see pictures. She was like, "Do you have pictures of that baby? Let me see that baby. Let me see that baby." Linda was in studio. She was in studio here 3 weeks ago, Joe? You think? 3 weeks ago. She was in studio 3 weeks ago, and we were talking to an angel mom and also victim of a hit and run, a illegal alien who had taken the life of an Arkansan and seriously altered the life of another young man. And she was working alongside these two, working with angel moms, trying to get to the bottom of trying to help and solve a lot of problems that her former constituents or constituents had with the government. She really truly cared about people. She really did. Matter of fact, at the end, that was on a Friday, and we hung out in the lobby right back here for probably 30 minutes, and we just talked. And she wanted to see photos of my daughter. She wanted, and you know what she did right before this is the last thing she did to me. My last interaction with her, she gave me $50, and she said, "This is for your daughter," because my daughter's going to be 2 in July, and she said, I never got to give her a birthday present, and so Of course, I was like, no, you don't have to do this. Please don't. But she would not let me. She would not leave here. She would have left the money on the ground, and she wanted me to buy her something from her, and so that's the kind of person she was, and that's how she'll be remembered. And she does this. She did this with everybody. She treated everyone the same. I mean, no matter if you were, a talk radio host or just some person that you're meeting for the first time on the street. She wanted to know who you were, what you were about. She genuinely cared for people, and almost, I would even say, in a supernatural way. And that's why I said on Twitter that I'll always remember her as someone who was marked by the love of Christ. Feel free to call or text or write on Facebook what you remember of Linda. Sad day today. Former Senator Linda Collins found dead at her home. We're going to take a break, and we're going to get through this show one way or the other. We're going to get through this, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a moment. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome back. We got on the phone line State Representative Jimmy Gazaway joins us. Jimmy, how are you this morning, sir?
Hey, Paul, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's always great to have you on, and we've been doing these impression of the sessions, so just wanted you to, I'm just going to give you the floor, so just go ahead and tell us, State Representative Jimmy Gazaway, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Overall, I thought it was pretty good. It was a little bit of a mixed bag, I guess. I mean, there were some things that I thought I was really proud of that we did. Some other things, as far as the taxes, we had some tax cuts, but we also had some tax increases. And so, with some of those things, I think we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Let me ask you this. You say like a wait-and-see situation.
Hey, folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. For all of our listeners, if you ever miss the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your number one source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com. Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
If you're just joining us, it is a sad day here in the state of Arkansas because former Senator Linda Collins passed away and was found yesterday at her home of a gunshot wound that is being investigated as a murder, according to reports. We do not know a lot. There's a lot that we don't know. So, and I know many of you out there want to speculate, but there's just no. I'm not going to do that because we've got to wait and see what happens. I will tell you this: it is absolutely. I know many of you out there are angry. I'm seeing how angry you are on the Facebook page, and I am too. I really am. But I am still trying to process this. Here's a few of your comments. Tim Jacob, she was a special and staunch defender of liberty, a treasured soul who could disagree without losing her kindness and compassion. Rest in peace, my friend. Robert, she always made everyone feel special. She would see me across a crowded room and make her way to me and hug my neck and say hello. We had some good, long talks. She always had time for everyone. That is exactly right. Dave, she always took time to explain her answers to me. When I asked the question, I learned so much from her. She will be missed. Sad day. There's a post over here from State Representative Brant Smith as well. Here's Dorothy Crockett, a Republican pioneer. Linda was a special lady who made everyone feel special. I was honored to be one of the recipients of her friendship. Shelley, heartbroken and furious, do not even come close to describing how I feel. Tanya, true warrior, she was. I'm trying to scroll. There's so many of these comments right now, so I have to forgive me if I'm skipping any. But I wanted to get to State Representative Brant Smith's comment because I thought it was really good. Here it is. He says, I'm already missing Linda Collins. Like many of you, she was my friend. I can't imagine not seeing her at Republican events and getting her texts and calls. She was a bigger-than-life person. This is true. Joseph Wood, indeed a tremendous loss. I believe that's the Joseph Wood there, the county judge of Washington County. This is happening all over the state. People are grieving all over the state right now because of who she was. I would say, out of the conservative part of the state, in terms of the people who are, who align on the right, solidly on the right. She never backed down, and she always fought for her principles. And you can go read what former Senator Brian King said about her, what Senator Alan Clark has said about her. She was incorruptible, is how she's being described. And that's certainly how I remember her as well. We've got to take a break. We'll continue with this. and also just continue to tell me what you think on the Facebook page. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome back. We got on the phone line State Representative Jimmy Gazaway joins us. Jimmy, how are you this morning, sir?
Hey, Paul, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's always great to have you on, and we've been doing these impression of the sessions, so just wanted you to I'm just going to give you the floor. So just go ahead and tell us, State Representative Jimmy Gazaway, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Overall, I thought it was pretty good. It was a little bit of a mixed bag, I guess. I mean, there were some things that I thought I was really proud of that we did. Some other things, as far as the taxes, we had some tax cuts, but we also had some tax increases, and so, with some of those things, I think we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Let me ask you this. You say like a wait and see situation. My question's been, at the end of the day, are the people going to be paying more or less? I mean, I've got DFNA's numbers. I think I know the answer, but what do you think? You think the people will be paying more money to the government, when it's all said and done than before?
Yeah, that's a real concern of mine. I mean, I can't say that for certain. Again, that's part of why I say I think we'll have to wait and see, but I think that's certainly a possibility, at least for some folks, depending on where you fall in the spectrum.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you just look at everything that we did. I mean, depending on how much you drive, I mean, we raised, the gas tax went up 3 cents, or potentially, we're going to have more than that, depending if the voters pass the preferred act that we sent out. And so, I just think we'll kind of have to wait and see, but I do fear that the overall tax burden could go up.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, I feel if that is the case, for the people, it's just going to be, it's going to be unfortunate, I think, because we had all these revenue propositions, if you will, and I would be against all of them, but it would be maybe a little bit easier to swallow for some if there had been like an effort to cut. Like we said, well, we don't need 95 million for the gas tax. We only need 50 because we found 50 over here. But it didn't seem like that conversation was something that was willing to be had. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I said the same thing. These things are kind of difficult as they come down because you have some smaller groups who are involved in the bigger discussions about those things, and the general membership is kind of left with what they put out. It kind of becomes difficult because you got to get so many people on board.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. We are, if you're just joining us, today is a sad day because we are mourning. The entire state of Arkansas is mourning the passing of former Senator Linda Collins, who was found yesterday at her home of a gunshot wound that is being investigated as a murder, according to reports. There are really no words aside from when we've been reflecting on what a great friend she was. And we don't know what happened. We have no details about what happened. That's what makes this so difficult. That's why we have so many questions. But we will bring you the news. We'll bring you as much information as we get, as we can while we get it. And I don't know if we're going to get it here in the next hour and a half left of the program, but if we do, we'll bring it to you. But we're going to still continue. And I want to continue to read the outpourings of the people, the comments, everything that you guys are saying, especially on the Facebook page. Please continue to, because I'm going to get to those and continue to read those. And but in the meantime, I do have scheduled interviews, and I want to get to those because I know Linda, if she were still here, she would want she would want us to continue to fight for the cause of liberty because she believed it was worth it. And so I want to introduce you right now on the phone. We have Rachel Malone is with us. Rachel is from Gun Owners of America, and I believe she runs their Texas operation. Rachel, welcome to Conduit News this morning. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. What about you?
Well, we are having a pretty bad day, but we're going to get through it. And
I'm sorry to hear the news. I had not heard that yet, so that must be a shock.
Yeah, it really is. It absolutely is. But I wanted to have you on because Gun Owners of America, you guys are doing great work. And I talked to your colleague Jordan Stein a couple of weeks ago about Gun Owners of America and the great work that you're doing. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I am honored to be working for GOA here in Texas as the Texas director. So I work on state legislation, but talking with some of y'all's gun rights activists in Arkansas, I think we're working on some of the same issues at times. So fighting red flag laws, I know that's been a big deal for y'all. And here it's been not just straight up red flag, but a lot of different mental health related legislation. Fighting against other gun control measures. There were about 20 bills I was actively fighting here this past session that just wrapped up. And then y'all have one up on us because you already have constitutional carry without a government permit, and we are still working on that. We don't have any carry without a permit outside of your home or place of business or a car. So that's one major thing we're still working on, and then fighting against any gun-free zones that the government says you can't have a gun here, because we all know that's nonsense and doesn't keep anybody safe.
So, real quick on the Texas question, there are some who are worried about Texas because there seems to be some people with political persuasions moving there from liberal states, but not changing their voting patterns. What are your thoughts on that?
So as far as the whole thing of don't California my Texas, and Texas is turning purple and blue because of all the Californians, some of the studies have shown that the last election, the Californians may have had more conservative votes than the native-born Texans. So I think that rhetoric may not be true, but I think what we are seeing is a lot of people just not understanding the roots of liberty. Maybe they think they're a gun rights person, perhaps, or claim to be sometimes, but they don't get why. To them, maybe it's just about, oh yeah, we want to go shoot our guns at the range. That's fine. We're not going to stop you from doing that. But it's a liberty issue. It's not about shooting my gun at the range. It's about defending my life. It's about defending my liberty and protecting against a tyrannical government. And because we're losing the general understanding of liberty, I think that's why people don't realize how dangerous some of the seemingly innocent measures are, and that's why Texas is definitely in danger of turning.
Yeah, it is an educational effort. I totally agree. Educating people about the benefits of liberty and really the pitfalls of the growth in government and more dependency on it. We're talking with Rachel Malone from Texas, Gun Owners of America. So, Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you? I did a little research, but where were you before Gun Owners of America, and what was your experience? What led you to this point?
Sure. So, directly before GOA, I was operations director of the Republican Party of Texas. Before that, I was a music teacher. And I was a music teacher for 15 years, and at the beginning of that, never really thought about politics or being involved, but had a change of heart and realized I had a gun to defend myself. Nothing happened. I just was confronted with other people who in my life who wanted to start carrying a gun. I freaked out because I thought it was crazy and dangerous. I did my research and realized I was actually safe for carrying a gun. So that started about 10 years ago, and then gradually got into volunteer activism because I was ticked off that my rights were being trampled on. I had to go get this permit, and we couldn't even open carry with a permit at that time, and I just thought it was ridiculous. And gradually I realized the deeper liberty connotation. So I started working on my own and connecting with other people just as a volunteer for many years. And then I actually got hired by the Republican Party of Texas as an operation director a couple years ago, and was able to work in that position there, including working on legislative things. But at our state convention last year and leading up to it, I'd been talking a lot about gun rights, and I was told that the governor didn't really like somebody in the party talking about some of those things that I was, because unfortunately I was opposing some of his gun control plans. So I was told I was no longer employed, and thankfully GOA decided they did want somebody talking about those gun rights issues, and I was able to start working for them as Texas director.
Wow. Yeah, and that just kind of goes with this, we kind of see this nationwide. There seems to be some people who are, quote, for Second Amendment rights, but it's almost like they think the regulations are coming regardless, so they might as well be in charge to write them, because they'll write them in a way that's better than, say, maybe the far left. Do you see that as well?
I see a lot of that talk. I mean, I haven't seen that particular line of reasoning. What I do see is people saying, oh, no, we're being given a seat at the table. We're being offered a voice in this conversation, a seat at the table. So maybe it looks like we're not really standing up against it, but I promise you we have a seat at the table. But you know what? A seat at the table is often given to shut people up, make them feel like, oh, now I'm being heard, but I better be careful not to lose my seat at the table. And it becomes all about, I can't, I can't take off the leadership. I can't say anything that'll upset people and make me lose my seat at the table. They don't realize they've already been shut up. Like they have no real voice anymore, because they're now just pandering to what they think leadership wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. So tell me about, does Texas have a legislature that is in session all year round, or is there only a certain period of time that they can pass legislation?
Thankfully, no. Texas is very blessed. Our legislature only meets 5 months every other year. And yes, that makes it a little harder to get stuff through, like constitutional carry, because if it dies 1 year, you got to wait a whole another year and a half before you can even have a chance to bring it up again. But also it means we're not constantly fighting against the gun control. So I like it that way.
Yeah. So did you guys are you guys trying to fight red flag legislation? Is that a real possibility, you think?
So we just finished our session without any red flag, and so it's a year and a half before they can bring it up, obviously unless the governor calls a special session. But we're tentatively, I say we're in a good place. We even came into session in a good place. So here's what happened. A year ago, the governor, our governor, came out with this big, quote, gun safety plan that included stuff like red flag and safe storage mandates and all sorts of penalties that are horrible government intrusion and all crazy mental health legislation that was just maybe not direct gun control, but long-term gun control because of the way it controls your mind and government in your life. And we just came out and we hit hard and we completely demonized the term red flag laws. And they tried to start calling it something else. And everybody's just like, no, we see right through that. That's a red flag law. And I think we just demonized the concept. Yeah. We demonized that concept so hard last summer before the session started. I'm pretty sure they came into session saying, okay, there's no way we're pulling any kind of actual red flag law. So what they did instead was, mental health consortium and other government control in ways that could long-term help a red flag law, but we didn't get a red flag law because we fought it so hard right away when they came out with the idea.
So they tried to rename the same idea because it was so unpopular. Yeah, that's a tactic that the left will try sometimes, and it's good that you guys, that Gun Owners of America in Texas has a strong presence, and you guys are fighting the good fight down there, and also fighting it across the nation. And you guys really are beholden to the idea of shall not be infringed. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing, Rachel. And it's been a pleasure to have you on the program this morning. And I would love to have you on under better circumstances for us here in Arkansas sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Well, again, my condolences to all of y'all in Arkansas, and we'll be in your prayers. And thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Absolutely, Rachel. Thank you so much for being on. It's a pleasure to meet you, folks.
Okay.
If you're just joining us, the reason that it is bad circumstance this morning is because if you haven't heard the news, former Senator Linda Collins was found dead yesterday evening of a gunshot wound. According to reports, it is being investigated as a murder, and that's essentially all we know. The website neareport.com was the first story that I saw on this, and there were several updates through the evening. And I'll just start over. I'll start over. At 7:25, NEA report learned that the information from a neighbor who said Colin Smith was killed by gunshot. 7:30, law enforcement source confirmed it appeared that it was not possible to be suicide. They were then told that neighbors have been locking their doors and staying inside, possibly at the instruction of law enforcement, but that turned out to be inaccurate because later, Arkansas Times reporting that Ken Yang told KATV that neighbors had heard gunshots at least a day before Colin Smith was found. Her body was found wrapped in a blanket, tarp, or something else based on different sources. State police told Arkansas Times the body was decomposed to the extent that they had not been able to identify the body. One source said that the body had been outside for several days. Forensic experts were on their way from Little Rock to investigate the scene. This was an update on neareport.com at 11 p.m. And they do note that Senator Linda Collins was incredibly active on social media, but her activity ended on May 28th at 2:29 p.m. That was the last time she posted, was May 28th at 2:29 in the afternoon. And anyway, Linda was the best. She was the best. And we don't know what happened. We will find out what happened. She has a family. She has children. She has grandchildren. And so please be in prayer for her family, which I know she cared for dearly, and be in prayer for the law enforcement that now has got to investigate this. Possibly a crime scene that is, according to reports, several days old. I'm not a law enforcement expert, but I have to imagine that makes things more difficult when it's something that is happened a few days ago, or maybe as many as 7 days ago. Who knows? Because the gunshot was heard, according to the report, by the neighbor at least a day ago, but it could have been more. And I'm assuming out there in rural Randolph County that is commonplace and not something that would cause somebody to think too much of it. It's only in hindsight that we now can see that that must have been what it was. We can't speculate at this point because we just simply don't know enough information. If you have any information out there, I would encourage you to contact the authorities. And originally there were reports that said the FBI was involved in investigating this, but I don't see those. It seems like those reports have been amended because I don't see them. I don't see anywhere where they're saying the FBI is now involved here. So maybe that was just lost in translation. Maybe they got confused with Arkansas State Police special agents versus FBI. I don't know. I don't know. There's obviously a lot of confusion last night. A lot of confusion, and there was also, there was also a lot of just please don't let this be true. I got a text. I was at the Greene County Republican Committee last night, and on the way home, I got a text from a friend saying, "Is it true?" And I said, "I hope not." And I made a phone call and found out that it was in fact true. But you're just still in shock. Linda Collins was loving, caring, and the love she gave to other people, everyone around her, was so supernatural. And we're going to take a break. We're going to reset here. Sound off. Tell me how Linda Collins impacted your life. That's what I would like to do today. Tell me how she impacted your life. You can sound off on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News. The live show, the live broadcast is up right now. This is Conduit News. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The governor's office involved in those discussions. You've got the industry folks, whether it's the Trucking Association, Chamber of Commerce, a lot of different people who are having their meetings and kind of making decisions, and then you're kind of stuck with some of those proposals that came out. But what I said from the very beginning was, you can't go back to the people and ask the people for more money until you have shown that, we're willing to tighten our belt, that we have looked for every way possible that we can cut spending, and that before you go back and ask the people for more money. And, I'm not sure that we did that, but, that's what I said from the very beginning. I had some conversations with the speaker along those lines that, my opinion, for what it's worth, is that we have to look for every way possible where we can cut before you go back to the people and ask them for more money.
Yeah. What were some of the highlights, though? What are some of the things that you think?
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Arkansas Republican Party putting out a statement. Today we learned of the untimely death of former Senator Linda Collins. She was a passionate voice for her people and a close member of our Republican family. We are praying for her loved ones during this difficult time. A few of your thoughts. Lynn on Facebook. Linda Collins was a genuine friend. She would call me out and teach me. She's the reason I'm an advocate for the Republican values, taught me how to engage my legislators, and I will miss our late night talks. It is still so not real, but in my heart, I have to accept this. You can sound off and give us your thoughts on Linda Collins and how she impacted your life at facebook.com/Conduit News. Tina writes, "We have lost a true patriot, so sad and angry. Prayers for her family and friends. Such a tragic loss." Fronda, "She was a warrior for truth and transparency." Bruce, "Small in stature, tall in the saddle." Reggie writing, "She was special. She was one of a kind." So we will continue to mourn, and that's what we're doing here. We're mourning the loss of our friend. Not only was she a friend, she was a fantastic public servant. Fantastic public servant. She would not back down if she truly believed in an issue. Even if it was unpopular, she would not back down. I mean, there's just so many instances, so many memories. A lot here. My first memory of Senator Linda Collins was the interview I did with her 10 years ago, which would have been when she was switching from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party. Many of you may not know this, but she was first elected to the State House of Representatives as a Democrat. And this was before people realized that the Democrat Party had completely changed from what it was, John F. Kennedy's party, to what it has become, the party of Michael Moore and now Alexandria Cortez. And Linda got out because she wasn't voting the way a Democrat should vote. And so she started to be punished for her. She was a Democrat, and she thought Democrats could be conservative. Like, that was still a possibility. There were some people that still thought that was a possibility, and so Linda was going down to the State House and voting her conscience on issues. Not, she was just issue by issue by issue, and on every issue she was landing on the right side of things. And so she decided that she, instead of facing the ostracizing force of the Arkansas Democratic Party that was still politically relevant in the state at the time, Linda decided to switch parties. That was the first time I met her, and it was a great interview. It interjected a lot of hope in the Republican Party of Arkansas at the time. And it's interesting. Linda switched parties back when the Democrats still had power and clout and the Republicans didn't. She did that because she truly believed in her principles. And what's ironic is that the former Democrat, Linda Collins, ends up having, after switching to the Republican Party, she ends up having the more conservative voting record than people who've been Republicans all their life. And that's and that is interesting, to the point of her detriment, politically speaking, to the point of her. She was so conservative. Linda Collins Smith, former Democrat, switched to Republican 10 years ago, was so conservative that a Republican governor backed her primary opponent because he was more moderate. She was a patriot. She was somebody that fought for liberty, fought what she believed in. She loved her family, and she will be truly missed. Let me know what you think of Senator Linda Collins. You can sound off facebook.com/Conduit News, or you could text us 870-275-9799. Thank you guys for listening, and we're going to get through this together. People all across our state are mourning the loss of this great woman who was apparently taken from us by someone, and we don't know who it is yet. But we're going to find out. Back in a moment.
and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
I think were successes.
Well, you go back and talk about the tax issue. I mean, we did lower the the tax rate, top tax rate from 6.9. That'll in 2020 be 6.6, and ultimately 5.9% in 2021. So, that's a big win. I think that's important to make us competitive with our surrounding states. Especially for high-income individuals who are business owners and employ people. We want them to stay in Arkansas. We want them to keep their businesses in Arkansas. So, lowering that top rate was important. I think that was a good thing. We also lowered the corporate tax rate. So, took that down from 6.5 to 5.9%. So on the tax front, I thought those were good things. I think ultimately those will help our economy. And then from the social standpoint, social issues, that's what I was probably most proud of. I mean, we had some great abortion legislation. We have an abortion trigger law now. The Supreme Court ever reverses Roe versus Wade, abortion immediately becomes illegal in Arkansas. We have the 18-week abortion ban that I think also makes it a felony for a doctor to perform an abortion prior to 18 weeks. So, we had some good abortion legislation. The Sanctuary City bill that Brant Smith ran, I thought was a great bill. Kind of puts us out there ahead of the curve on those issues. So I thought we had some big wins on some of those issues.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me, Jimmy, is how the national media, they really didn't really cover what we were doing with the abortion trigger law or the 18-week abortion ban at all. And then all of a sudden, they start covering Alabama, Missouri, Louisiana, and yet Arkansas really didn't get the news. And it's probably good because it made the law easier to pass. But Arkansas was doing this in the direct wake of Vermont, New York, and is it Virginia or North Carolina? I can't ever remember the governor that said, we'll make the baby comfortable and then decide after it's born, whether to kill it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the headlines in the recent weeks, I've just kind of been, Arkansas has already done all of this stuff, and it wasn't controversial at the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was proud to see what we did on those abortion bills. I think that was the governor of Virginia, and then the governor of North Carolina vetoed the Born Alive bill that the North Carolina legislature passed.
Ah, okay.
And then we saw what you're right. I mean, what we did in Arkansas was in the wake of what they did in New York, which was just a disgrace. I mean, that to me it just shocked my conscience that the governor of New York would they lit up some of the buildings in downtown New York City blue to celebrate what they had done, when in fact it was one of the biggest disgraces we've seen, in recent times. And so I was really proud of what we did in Arkansas, and I'm glad to see what they're doing in Alabama and other parts of the country. But we were right there on the forefront too here in Arkansas, so I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So which committees did you serve on this past session, Jimmy?
I was on the Judiciary Committee again. So this is my second term to serve on the Judiciary Committee. And then I was on state agencies this session. I had been on City, County, Local the previous session.
So talk to us a little bit about, on the Judiciary Committee, I think another huge moment in the session was the resolution to clarify that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. What were your thoughts on that? I think our mutual friend Tim Loggins testified with Brant Smith there at the end of the table. Just kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, well, that was another excellent bill. I guess actually it's a resolution, but Brant Smith probably deserves like an all-star award for this session. I mean, he had some really good bills, and that certainly was one of them. So Brant had the resolution to basically affirm the Taft decision, which says that you can carry open or concealed in Arkansas. In other words, it's not violation of Arkansas law carrying a weapon if you have a firearm on your person. So it just reaffirmed that Taft decision. And
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome back to the program. This is hour number 2 on a sad, dark day for the state of Arkansas as we are mourning the loss of Senator Linda Collins, who was found at her home yesterday, dead of an apparent gunshot wound, according to reports, NEAreport.com. Law enforcement sources saying this is not possible to be suicide based on the scene. 7:50 last night. We're told neighbors have been locking their doors, staying inside, but that didn't turn out to be accurate. What we know this morning is that according to the neighbor who heard the gunshot at least a day ago. And this, according to Arkansas Times, says Ken Yang, who once campaigned for Linda Collins Smith, told KATV neighbors had heard gunshots at least a day before Collins Smith was found. Her body was found wrapped in a blanket, tarp, or something else. State police told Arkansas Times the body was decomposed to the extent that had not been able to identify it. One source told me the body had been outside for several days, again according to the NEAreport.com. We are mourning the loss of a patriot. We're mourning the loss of a mother, a grandmother, and please pray for her family and pray for all of the people also that are grieving and knew her. The good news is she led a life marked by the love of Jesus Christ, and if you knew her, you know that to be true, and death is not the end. Praise God, death is not the end. Ken Yang is on the line. Ken, are you there?
I'm here.
Ken, I know you knew Linda just as well as I did, and I know you would agree with my sentiments about her.
Yes. I actually just happy I'm not on TV right now. I'd be wiping away tears. Linda, I hate that we're talking in this circumstance, but she was unafraid to meet her maker. I mean, she, of course, like all of us, don't want to die, but she would always tell me that, she, when the time comes, she would be ready to meet her maker, because that's how of a passionate of a Christian woman that she was. And I've been doing a lot of interviews trying to just let people know about Linda's life and keep it together. And I tell people, I try to make light and think of good memories, and I can just hear Linda's voice like, Ken, keep it together. Keep it together, Ken. And that would just be Linda just always telling you how it was and how she thought it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, she was, I think I talked to you a little bit about this last night, but she always wanted to know about you personally, It wasn't just a political thing with her. She was highly relational, and she genuinely cared about how you were doing, how your family was doing, how you were growing, how you were progressing throughout this life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are people that say that they care, and I'm sure they care to an extent. But when Linda said that she cared, I mean, you know, I might not personally call her for a few weeks, but she would pick up the phone or she would text and say, "Hey, what's going on? What's up? Wanted to check in on you." She, you know, genuinely cared and genuinely wanted to know what was going on. I'm thinking I was told the news outlet last night. I said I think it's important to also know that you were talking about her political path, and it goes along to how great of a Christian woman she was, and how just vile and awful and mean certain people were to her. But guess what? Those people don't know that in private, Linda never said one ugly, nasty thing about those people. She might say, "That person's being mean to me, Ken." I mean, that's how bad that Linda would talk about someone, was just to say that they were mean. And that just goes to her character. It's as a young person, you know, young people typically don't deal with death as much as the older generation, and so this is just, you know, this just hits home for me personally. I met her in 2010. I worked on her campaign in 2014. I helped her do media stuff in 2015 and 2017, and she's always been there for me, and it sucks.
Yeah, it certainly does. I know you were quoted in several reports, and I know we don't know a lot, but what can you tell us and reiterate to us about what you know, the circumstances surrounding her death, Ken?
You know, I think one of the major points that I made, the media picked up, was, you know, she was very active on social media, and her last post was May 28th. So very unlike Linda to not be sounding off on something, as we know Linda well, and so it goes along to the collaboration of a friend that I know up there, who said one of the neighbors heard a gunshot a day or two prior to yesterday evening, and he found her body. Suicide was immediately taken off the table, and state and federal investigators were headed up to investigate this as a homicide. Sheriff Bell, I believe, is supposed to have a press conference today for more information and details. So I would, you know, people should probably be on the lookout for that. Hopefully he does have it today. I'm sure at latest would be tomorrow.
Yeah. So you say that you did hear that the federal government was involved in investigating this as well?
Yes, I did hear that, and then I heard multiple reports regarding that. But, you know, I've been telling every media outlet, I said, look, it's normal for state investigators to come. What's abnormal is for federal investigators to come, and I hope a lot of questions are asked and poked and prodded, and if this cannot just go away. You know, and you know, and I am been trying to be cognizant of not, you know, spreading rumors or spreading, you know, he said, she said, this may happen, that may happen. But I hope a lot of people ask questions. I hope questions will be answered without us having to get too heavily involved. But I tell people, for the time being, I want to, you know, Linda deserves justice. But for the time being, we need to celebrate Linda.
Yes.
And I think that's the most important thing right now.
Yeah. Ken Yang, I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning, and I know your words are helping the entire state go through this grieving process. and really appreciate it, sir. So just keep me posted if you hear anything else.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Ken Yang, everybody. You can sound off about our dear friend and public servant, Linda Collins, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News. Your comments are pouring in because all of you knew her. That's the thing. You guys knew who she was. You knew what she stood for. And this goes. I'm glad that Ken brought up how many people were so mean to her politically, but this goes beyond politics. I'm glad he did, because it does need to be said. But this is beyond politics, ladies and gentlemen. This is about in terms of remembering her. I mean, I know there are people on the left that would say that she was a kind woman. She was a gentle soul. She was a patriot, and but she treated everyone with respect. She treated everyone with kindness, and that was that's what marked her life. And so, just absolutely, I was, and I'm not many of you. I was shocked yesterday when I heard the news, and trying to get as many details as I could. So, anyway, I understand that we do have Aaron Hogan on the line, who is the former head of the Republican Party of Randolph County, who also worked right by Linda's side a couple of years ago. She was at the Capitol and knew her well. Aaron, can you hear me?
I can, Paul. Yeah, I sure can.
Aaron, I just wanted to give you the opportunity, because I know you were very close with her. What are your thoughts on this sad day?
I'm really just still in shock. The tears have not come very much. It's more just still shock. I can't believe she's gone, and she was very dear to me. We had a very strong connection together, and like you said, we worked very closely together back in 2017 during the session, and I saw her just about every day, and I would go pick her up at her place she was staying, and take her to the Capitol every day, and spent the whole day with her, and I got to see a lot of behind the scenes of Linda, and she was just one of the most incredible people I've ever known. I learned an incredible amount from her, and I will be forever, forever grateful for her influence on my life. And I just love her very much, and I'm just shocked that she's gone.
Are you in Randolph County now, or are you in Little Rock?
I am actually here in Little Rock.
Okay.
I'm living here in Little Rock working for Family Council.
Yeah.
And I know I wouldn't be here without her.
Exactly.
She just really has had a huge impact on my life.
Absolutely.
So,
but have you heard from people back home, though? I mean, what are they feeling? What is it? I mean, it's just shock. But have you heard anything from Randolph County?
I've heard from a few. Actually, my county clerk is the one that gave me the news. Really, just folks are in shock.
Yeah.
Can't believe it. You know, we just can't believe it. She was very dear to so many people back home. She loved her constituents. She took care of them. She was there for them. You know, all you had to do was give her a phone call, give her a text, and she was there for you. She's one of the greatest. I have always called her one of the greatest senators in the state of Arkansas.
Mm.
And for me personally, I think she was the best.
Yeah.
So I love her dearly.
Aaron Hogan, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your thoughts on this sad day about the great Senator Linda Collins. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you so much. I know Linda really appreciated you and loved you so much, so thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Aaron. The telephone number, folks, 870-275-9228. 9799. The Arkansas Democrat Party issuing a statement last night. To so many of us, Senator Linda Collins was more than just a colleague. She was a friend and a warm person. We are stunned and saddened to hear of her death. Please join us in prayer as we remember her family and her loved ones. The Arkansas Republican Party as well, putting out a statement. Today we learn of the untimely death of former Senator Linda Collins. She was a passionate voice for her people and a close member of our Republican family. We are praying for her loved ones during this difficult time. Brian King, former Senator Brian King. Tonight, I was heartbroken to learn about the death of my friend and former colleague, Linda Collins. Linda was a rare public servant that stayed true to her word in a political world that did everything it could to defeat her. Her courage to stand up for what was right in the face of evil made her such an inspiration to myself and all others that cared about what is right and just. Words can't express the emotions that overwhelm me on how anyone could do such evil to someone with such a pure and good heart. My only comfort is knowing our Lord has Linda in his arms. I pray for all of her family during this terrible, unthinkable tragedy. Alan Clark on Facebook. I am sure I will have more to say in the future, but for now, Senator Clark says, I have simply lost one of my best friends and a person, whether you loved her or hated her, was fearless and incorruptible. We're going to take a break. Sound off on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. We'll be back in just a moment.
Said that Arkansas is an open carry state, or open or concealed carry state. And, you know, I thought it was a great bill. Obviously, there were some Democrats on the committee that felt differently than me. But, you know, and Tim testified, and Tim is great, you know. And Tim and I have several conversations about these issues, and Tim kind of keeps me informed on, you know, the most recent developments. But Tim really got up there, and he shut everybody down. I mean, even the Democrats who wanted to attack it, Tim is so knowledgeable, and he spits out those code sections like, I say he does it like memory verses, like, you know, you used to do at church.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll say 573-201, 573-604, and, you know, he knows exactly what he's talking about, and he can cite statutes word for word like you would, you know, recite John 3:16. He knows his statutes, and so Tim did a great job, and ultimately we were able to pass.
Hey, folks, it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. You know, for all of our listeners, if you ever missed the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your #1 source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com. Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you for listening, even though I understand, I mean, of all days, if you wanted to turn this program off, this would be the day to do it. Just because I would understand, at least, because it's a tough one. It's certainly tough for me to get through. If you're just joining us, if you've just awoken this morning and you're having your first sip of coffee, Senator, I hate that I have to keep repeating this, but Senator Linda Collins was found dead at her home yesterday. According to reports, it's a gunshot wound. According to reports, it's being investigated as a murder. Suicide was ruled out pretty much immediately upon discovery of her body. According to reports, was found in a tarp or a blanket or something like that outside for, we think, at least a couple of days. And I think that is why you do have the reluctance, based on the Arkansas State Police and others, to not 100%. They're not actually saying, they're saying there's a death, but they're not actually saying that it was Senator Linda Collins. And I think that's because of decomposition. But for all intents and purposes, we know that she's no longer with us. And I noticed the Gazette is kind of parroting exactly what the government is saying, not what other people are saying who are aware. Other news outlets that have law enforcement sources. On Facebook, your tributes are coming in. Darren on Facebook. I know that we didn't always see eye to eye, but I loved her passion and her spirit. She was a bulldog in the political arena. She fought for what she fought for what she thought was right. That's what counts. She would make you laugh. She would pep you up, and she'd let you know when you were doing wrong. I'll miss her at our meetings. Dennis writes, well, I do remember how passionately Linda Collins felt about me being wrong on term limits. Me too. I too remember that. That was great. That was an example of that was like the only disagreement I had, and obviously, we talked about that before with the term limits, the reasonable arguments that were made on both sides, that are still made on both sides of that argument. But Linda will be remembered. This is not over. We're going to find out who did this. This justice is going to be done. I know many of you are praying to that end at this point. At this point, though, I know that I want that as well. That and I don't even does that just because that helps us feel better to know? So I want to pray for the family because they're the ones who are the most shocked. As shocked as any of you are, as shocked as I am, as shocked as any of you are. The family is feeling this in a way that we are not, and we're feeling it. So pray for them. Pray for them. When we come back, we have an interview scheduled with State Representative Jim Dotson, who will be giving his impression of the session. We're going to move forward with that because that's what Linda would want. Back in a moment.
that. It passed through the Senate. I thought that was another big win.
What were your thoughts? I agree. Towards the end of the session, you mentioned sanctuary cities, but we also had towards the end of the session kind of a last-minute approval of the DHS budget that includes Obamacare Arkansas Works. But there was a little controversy there because it seemed about 30 minutes before the Senate passed the funding now, there was a judge that struck down the work requirements in the law. And then, the House kind of, stalled it. They didn't have the votes for about a day, and then, of course, they passed it. But what were your thoughts surrounding that? It was almost as if an old issue that was settled and done had it almost kind of came back up and became a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so there was the federal court decision that struck down our work requirement, and so I think, I voted against the first appropriation when it came up again because, we really have to step back and take a look at this. I mean, without the work requirement, what are we going to do? I mean, what are our options? We don't want to make any rash decisions. This thing is starting to cost us more year after year, and so, with the work requirement, I think that made it palatable for most Republicans, but if the work requirement's not going to be able to stand, and ultimately we still don't know that, that's on appeal. But, if the work requirement's ultimately not able to stand, then I think there will be a lot of reevaluation among a lot of our colleagues in the legislature about, whether or not we want to continue this. And so, we just have to wait and see, I think.
So, I guess 4 years ago, the state estimate for the state portion of the program, Jimmy, was estimated, I believe, around $50 million. But this last fiscal year, we actually are paying $138 million. Do you think that discrepancy is a reason? Is that driving the new taxes to pay for roads or to pay for whatever the cause is? Maybe that's why they didn't find the savings, because we are kind of strapped paying for this program.
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, it certainly doesn't help the budget when you have to meet those certain obligations. Now, there are people who will tell you that if you look at it on the whole, from the time that we began the program and we began to take the federal money when we had no obligation versus what we're paying now, that, ultimately it's net, we're better for it financially. Again, I don't really know that that's true, and we'll have to continue to see how it unfolds as years go on. Our obligation, continues to go up, and the number of people that enroll, and so on and so forth. But, I don't know that I would have.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the hardest shows I've ever had to do. Obviously, we've been reporting essentially the entire broadcast on the untimely death that's being investigated, according to reports, as a murder by former Senator of former Senator Linda Collins. And we are all heartbroken this morning. We did talk with Ken Yang, who is quoted in several media reports about this incident earlier, that he said that the FBI is involved, that the feds are involved and interested in, and they want to know what's going on as well. And that is abnormal. I read those in reports last night, but then I didn't see them in the reports this morning. But Ken is saying that he's seen the reports and that appears to be what is that's still out there. That idea, that thought is still out there, which certainly is conspicuous considering how normally the Arkansas State Police just head stuff like this up. So we'll give you the news as soon as we know it. Folks, we've been doing these segments called Impressions of the Session in the 92nd General Assembly, and I know a day like today, these issues just seem so minuscule, but we're still going to get to it. We've got State Representative Jim Dotson is on the line. State Representative Jim Dotson, I know we want to get to the interview here in a minute, but do want to give you the opportunity to respond about this terrible news that people are mourning all across the state.
Morning, Paul. I would say it's good to be on, but on a morning like this, it's hard to use the word good. I don't know that I can comment on details of anything. I don't know them to comment on them, but it's just a tragic time, and our all of our thoughts and prayers are with the family and people that are closest in this situation to just prayers for comfort and peace for them as they try to process last night and this morning on what's happened and what's happening as it unfolds. I don't know how much more I can say about it. It's a tragedy.
It is. It's an absolute tragedy, and we will all get through it. I do know that much. Well, I do appreciate you coming on the program and to do that, especially in light of the circumstances. But let's just go ahead and give you the floor. I think you've done one of these before. So, State Representative Jim Dotson, what was your impression of the session 2019, sir?
Well, so every session has the good, the bad, the ugly, and probably how you categorize each and every bill within those depends on your individual lens and how you view government. My personal impression of the session, obviously comes from my perspective of the successes and failures of what I was working on. And overall, I probably had the most successful session I've had to date in the 4 regular sessions I've been in office. I know it's often easy to focus on the turds, and this year there were some big stinky ones, especially in the area of taxation. From my viewpoint, there are 2 ways to spell tax, T-A-X and F-E-E. Sadly, both of them have the same effect, taking the hard-earned money out of the pockets of Arkansans and putting it under the control of the government. Although I've not added up all the new taxes and fees versus reductions, if you include the half-cent sales tax, if that gets extended, or not extended but made permanent, I would suspect that probably more money will be coming out of the pockets of Arkansans after the 92nd General Assembly than before, which is highly disappointing, especially since the 92nd General Assembly actually enacted some of the best tax policy overall in state history. But if I can, kind of like to focus on some of the successes from this session.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of which, your listeners may have not have heard about yet or be aware of. First of all, the National Motto Display Act, In God We Trust, that we passed in 2017, further clarified and expanded on. And for those that may not be familiar with that, a couple of years ago we passed legislation that allowed folks to contribute our national motto, In God We Trust, to be displayed in public buildings, and required those public buildings to put them up if they were contributed and donated. And that included all classrooms and libraries of elementary and secondary education buildings. Clarified that a little bit because there's questions throughout the last couple of years on what had to be on the framed copy, if it had to be In God We Trust over a centered American flag or not, and those sorts of things. But also expanded the definition of classrooms and libraries to include institutions of higher education. So any public institution of higher education, people can donate our national motto, a framed copy of that too, and those institutions of higher education shall display those in their classrooms and libraries if they get them. So that was further clarified. A bill that I've worked on since I started in the legislature, and oftentimes we pass stuff or things fail, but a lot of times we don't realize that it's been worked on multiple sessions in a row. But we reduced the concealed carry fees from $100 for a new application to $50 for a new license, and then the renewals from $35 to $25. And, that's something I've worked on since I've been there. So at least 4 sessions trying to make that, that's a big win for Arkansans. Rules and regulatory reform. I had 3 different bills this session dealing with that. Prior to this session, Arkansas was the only state in the country that didn't have an online searchable database for citizens to easily access what type of regulatory compliance they're subject to in their business or personal lives. Also, every new state law that gets passed, state agencies have to write new rules to implement that law. And so sometimes it would take them years to write those new rules whenever they got around to it. But now, because of Act 517, not only will they be required to get the rules done by the 1st of January in the year after a session, but they'll also have to narrowly write the rules within the bounds of the statute that gave them authority to write those rules. So no longer will they have broad bureaucratic interpretation authority when writing those rules, which that's also, in my view, that's a big win as well.
And we're talking with State Representative Jim Dotson. I know you have kind of I've watched some of your work in other meetings, that take place in between the legislative session, specifically on the appropriation process. I remember when you were trying to limit, what these bureaucracies were going to be, they shouldn't be given the authority to, be funded more than they need, and they were asking for these, ridiculous increases. And you really brought that to light, and I thought that was a good idea. In light of the 92nd General Assembly, I wonder if you were at all frustrated, because I see that you voted against the was it $95 million for the gas tax. So the gas tax increased 3 cents, 6 cents, and I wonder if you're all frustrated that there really didn't seem to be a conversation about finding that money, or at least a portion of that money that was desired from cuts somewhere else.
Well, I mean, every single bill you have to discuss on its own merits. So, there's always going to be challenges and frustrations. Like I said, that's part of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in my view, that was the ugly. But in some people's view, that was the good. So, like I said, it all depends on your perspective. But we did reduce some things. Like I said, concealed carry fees got reduced. But on the other hand, a whole bunch of other fees got increased. And so you have to fight these battles individually. And I know trying to hold spending in check has been something that I've been working on and focused on. But probably in light of that individual bill, there wasn't a conversation about it. But there have been other conversations about spending in general. And so it's just the whole legislative sausage, if you will, has those good and bad points in it. And you can't always, you have to vote on individual bills, and you have to discuss the individual bills in front of you and vote them up or down. But on net, I think we probably made more over the last year, not just including this session, more of an awareness on spending than probably has happened in a long time. I mean, just for instance, with regards to appropriations, this in the budget hearings that happened last fall, out of the billions and billions of dollars that we appropriate, which gives the agencies authority and quote unquote flexibility to spend, we reduced their overall appropriations by about $4.6 billion. And so we took a lot of agency discretion away on how they spend those dollars without having to come back and ask for permission.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're making some progress. It's, I could always want more, but, sometimes you have to put these things in perspective. When I first started, we were overjoyed and ecstatic that we were able to reduce the top income tax rate by a tenth of a point, from 7% down to 6.9. Well, 6 years later, we were able to get it from 6.9 down to 5.9, a whole point, which, we sometimes underestimate how big a victory that truly is.
Yeah.
That's been at 7%, I think, since the early 70s. So taking it in light of the overall, we had some really major successes and some really frustrating setbacks in certain areas.
Well, and like you said, I think the overall tax structure, I mean, if that's all you're concerned about, then I think it was a win. But if you're worried about the people paying more money to the government than they were, that was a fail. I've got the DFNA numbers, and even without the half cent getting passed by the voters, it's still bad news. If that half cent comes in, it's a ridiculous amount of money. We're talking with State Representative Jim Dotson. Real quick, 2 years ago, last session, you were pushing very, very reasonable school choice legislation. I understand you weren't necessarily carrying that towards this time, but were you disappointed that we couldn't move the needle anymore on school choice?
Yeah, I mean, I've been frustrated and disappointed with that for obviously a couple of years. I think we did have some positives with regards to education in general. On school choice, that continues to be a challenge that, in states that I've looked at and studied across the nation, it really requires a strong leadership, a strong executive push oftentimes in order to get that type of stuff done and a priority set on that. Hopefully in the future we can get that early on in a session, because when that happens, those things get done on those contentious issues.
Yeah.
But it became clear, really on the first day of session when we saw how the committees were assigned, that we probably wouldn't have the votes to get anything through the House Education Committee, and so my focus and attention turned to the things that we could actually accomplish this session. In light of that, I think a really positive out of this session was that the House was able to change the committee selection process.
Yes.
Now the Speaker won't have complete authority over that, and we'll choose committees by seniority. And hopefully in future years that'll give us a little bit more of a opportunity. I don't know if we'll be any more successful, but it will give us more of an opportunity to consider that type of legislation.
I agree. That's true.
I don't know how much time you got left.
Well, we just got a little bit of time left, so go ahead.
A couple other things just to bring to your attention. We did a lot with procurement. So with regards to spending, we made some major changes in that to try to, based off of procurement study over the last couple of years. And so hopefully we will be able to hold that spending more in check with regards to procurement processes, and state purchasing. And, I'll skip over corporate tax reform, which we had some major positives in, as far as trying to get manufacturing capital investments and things like that into our state in the future. One thing that we did was, we're number one in teen pregnancy in the state, or the state of Arkansas in the nation is number one. And so we did some very positive things, in my view, of trying to focus on how do we get teens to avoid risk behaviors and give them the proper information that they need in order to make good choices for their health and their future, and avoid that. That'll have cost-saving benefits, because most of those teen pregnancies are Medicaid births. So if we can help kids make better choices and avoid to them, but also to taxpayers in the future.
Yeah.
That's very good. And then finally, well, not finally, I mean, we've got several more to talk about, but historical documents in public schools, we gave some protections to teachers and local districts to, be able to teach things like the Bill of Rights, the Northwest Ordinance, President Washington's farewell address, the Gettysburg Address, and things like that without censorship or without any type of
because they don't want they talk about God and a higher power in a lot of those documents,
right?
And
so,
you don't want them to admit that in the classroom.
Exactly. Now we've given the teachers in the classroom the ability to teach those things. I mean, obviously they'd have to make that local decision themselves,
right?
But without having to edit those or be censored by their local authorities.
Yeah.
But we've also given them within it was House Bill 1747 the ability of local school districts to require as part of, if they choose to, part of their graduation requirements and things like that. They can ensure public students understand limited government, liberty, security, and the Bill of Rights, federalism, and other basic principles that are, essential to the stability and endurance of our constitutional republic. So I think we've given some tools. There were some really good positives in regards to that that are not often talked about. So.
State Representative Jim Dotson, I appreciate it, sir, from District 93. It's always great to have you on. Thanks for spending time with us and giving your impression of the session, sir.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right.
Have a good day.
Folks, we're going to be back in just a moment, and we're going to end the show by continuing to discuss the tragic events surrounding the death of former Senator Linda Collins, found at her home, dead of a gunshot wound. Authorities, according to reports, saying it's not suicide. It's being investigated as a murder. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Attribute some of the tax increases to that. You look at the highway program, we increased taxes there, but I think generally when you talk to people want good highways, and at some point there is some recognition that if you're going to have good roads, if you want nice things, you have to pay for them. But again, I think what's incumbent upon us is before you go back to the people and you raise their taxes in order to pay for something, is that you look at every possible avenue to say, where are we spending money frivolously? Where are we spending money where we don't need to be spending money? Where can we cut before you go back and ask the people for another dime? And I just think that has to be your analysis.
We're talking with State Representative Jimmy Gasway. Last question, the next general session, is 2 years from now. What are your thoughts? What are your goals? What's something that you might like to accomplish that you didn't get done?
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Of all, so they have nothing to lose. And so then whenever there's a situation like this, it's just heartbreaking what we've heard, the stories. Even when Senator Stubblefield did his bill, for years we've talked about in the legislature this issue of no compliance on insurance. It's horrible. You and I have to have that.
Right.
There's punishment, major punishment for that we're going to have. Yeah. But in this case, these people have the punishment. They can't even do medical bills. They can't even pay their medical bills.
Haley's bills were $48,000. And the death on the insurance is supposed to be $50,000.
This is Senator.
You consider me a witness to anything,
Linda Collins Smith,
and tell me I can't be in the
on the program
courtroom.
Just kind of giving some highlights here.
Anything that we asked, it was no. I don't understand it. The man was treated better than we were.
Paul, I saw the respect on some of the videos that he was given, and I know that officers have to do their jobs, but I would hope that the same respect to the families of the victims could be given as well. And that's what seemed that did not happen. It just seemed that way. And unless someone can show something different, this family has shown me, at least Kathy has, and I've met with David, visited with him for a good hour this morning too, but is that they're not treated the same, that the person that did the crime was treated so much better than the families were, and it just seems like the system is upside down, and we have to bring attention to that because we need changes in the way we handle.
Is this a statewide policy, or is this specific to what?
This is Senator Linda Collins Smith. Senator Linda Collins Smith, 3 weeks ago on the program, standing up for Arkansans who are the victims of illegal immigration, and talking about the policy, the judicial policy that is happening when it comes to charging illegal immigrants with crimes. So we have more.
Paul, and you've been around this by being in the Capitol and following when laws are made and through the off seasons, but that was an issue that we've had and literally been snubbed, and just the insult that they think that we need to change the Constitution if we want to have them prosecute and
about the
basically have more fairness in the way they prosecute. They have full prosecutorial discretion. If they don't want to prosecute a case, they don't have to. And it's heartbreaking if you're the person that's the victim or if you've been wronged. Even the state of Arkansas trying to gain funds back in audits.
She's talking about Catherine Hall, who's sitting next to her, who lost her daughter. If you're just joining us, the tragic we're talking about all show, and your comments have been pouring in about the tragic death, apparent murder of former Senator Linda Collins. The last time I saw her was 3 weeks ago. She was here in studio. This is what she said.
Going to get a slap on the hand and an airline ticket home.
And that's exactly
There has to be accountability, just like you do with your children. But if you've done a crime, Americans, if they're punished and they have a specific guidelines, I mean, and they're willing to do their time and try to be good citizens again, we've got to enforce the policy. We have laws on the books, but we're being way too lenient, and we need to make sure that we put Americans first.
Absolutely. You agree with that, Catherine?
Totally.
Former Senator Linda Collins, a true friend, a patriot, a fighter of liberty. She will be missed. She cared for everyone she met, and her life was marked with the supernatural love of Christ that she gave to everyone around her. I hope whoever did this is found and brought to justice soon. Arkansas, be safe. Pray for the family of Linda Collins. We'll see you tomorrow.